Hope everyone is well, though. Yeah, so Wigan already had 3 positive tests on players the week before, although one of those was retested a couple of times and it turned out to be a false positive. And they then had 3 staff members test positive this week in the testing. And because of the number of cases, that meant it was kind of out of Wigan's hands. They had the multiple case review panel, or whatever they're called, kind of takes over then and says what needs to happen before Wigan can get back into training, well, before any team in those circumstances can reopen their training ground and resume activity. So at the point of when that match was kicking off, Wigan weren't actually allowed to undertake activity. It was very frustrating from my point of view, because I was sat there sort of thinking, well, one, I really was looking forward to the game, but 2, I was sat there thinking Wigan have got a big enough squad to surely find a way to get enough players out there to play the game. That wasn't the problem here. I do understand that Wigan wanted to try and find a way, if possible, to rearrange the game for Sunday if the test results had all come back positive. But with Catalans being based in France and travel issues there, it wasn't able to be worked out for that to happen. I think if Wigan were playing another side, then probably they would have been looking to get a game on Sunday if all the results came back positive. We didn't actually get an update on the results from the Super League over the weekend, which was a bit surprising. But I guess everyone's focus was on Wembley, and they weren't taking anything away from that. But yeah, certainly I can see why the conspiracy theories look at this and think Wigan and Catalans maybe have played a blinder for themselves here, with Leeds having to play against Warrington and losing. Big difference there, isn't it, for Leeds?
Yeah, but again, I think it's following the right rules for the right reasons. I do know that Super League sides now are having to video record all their training sessions, so that if there is an outbreak, they can limit it and confirm who was next to each other in training, to even down to that level. So they are reviewing all the training sessions that way, if anything happens. So yeah, I just don't think you can. I can see why you can draw that conclusion, but
yeah, without a doubt, it was going to happen at some point.
Bollocks.
Wigan and Catalans were supposed to play in round 10, but Catalans hadn't had their outbreak at that time, so that was when Castleford stepped in late to play Wigan, and so this was just, and they were originally due to play the week after lockdown started, or the week after the season lockdown started back in March. So this game seems destined to not be on, unfortunately. It's the added complication of Catalans being one of the teams who've got some catch-up games to play and being based in France.
Up the top, and being up the top of the top end, so it looks more than protected.
I think both teams would have been keen to have this game on, because the winner of this game would have been really in the box position when it came to the playoffs, and the loser of this game still would have known Leeds would have been losing on Tuesday night, and Leeds would have been losing relatively convincingly, everyone would have expected. So I think both sides would have wanted this game on. I really do, because both would have thought they could win it. Wigan confident after the display against Warrington, and Catalans got a fully fit squad pretty much, looking in good nick. So I kind of think both teams would have wanted this one, and neither team would have been. Like, if Catalans would have won, Wigan wouldn't have been out of the top 4. Let's put it that way. But anyway, we'll see if they can find a spot for it in the schedule. It looks unlikely, unfortunately. Could be the one game that is a casualty for now. Predictions: I went 4 out of 5. Alan went 3 out of 5. I think it was his heart over head in the Challenge Cup final that saw him lose out on that marker. In the host Super Brew, I'm top, Tim you're second, Alan's third, Sarah's dropped down to 4th in that. In the Super Brew, Steve Pye stays top, but I'm not actually convinced they've updated the yellow cap from last week yet, because it was the same person who won it last week, but he'd gone down a spot when I looked. So I was like, what's going on there? So I think that's not been fully updated yet. In the Fantasy League, we don't know what's going on with the points this week, but we know that Baggers is still top. I don't know what games sit in counting for this week's stats, but we know that Stephen Hargreaves was the top weekly performer from whatever they did give us, with 358 points, which is pretty amazing, considering I have no idea what games counted. And the games that did had lots of debutants and stuff as well. But well done to those guys. Thank you to everyone for their fan views on these games and the Challenge Cup final, of course, earlier. Make sure you get your fan views in on next week's games. Look out for the links to the Google form or check out superleaguepod.com to find a link to the form there if you're not a Twitter user. But that's Super League covered from last week. We're now going to look back over the NRL. Right, NRL results then. It was finals week 3, and it started on Friday morning UK time, and it started really quickly for the Storm. They won 30 points to 10, but in reality the game was over much earlier than that with an opening 25-minute burst from the Storm.
I was going to say 20 minutes in and it was all over. I was on a goodbye call with some people from work, and I looked up for 10 seconds and I could see it disappearing off in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, our British players though for the Raiders, John Bateman had 128 metres in his farewell appearance. George Williams rounded out a fantastic debut season in the NRL with 1 try assist. His cohort in the halves might have won the Dally M, Jack Whiten, but I think George Williams probably deserved to take more points off him than obviously he did in that chase. Elliot Whitehead also played for the Raiders. We had a couple of fan views.
Yeah, Mark Butler said a mind-boggling first 10 minutes, including a try that left several Canberra defenders with twisted blood by Melbourne. Ended this game as soon as it had begun. We've seen some comebacks in the NRL lately, and a Canberra try just before the break gave them a sniff of another, but it was never really on. They were kept at arm's reach during a less incident-packed second half. I mean, that second half was the Storm doing what the Storm do, which is just squeezing the life out of you when they've got a lead. And it was good to watch that they are still there. It was classic Bellamy in that respect.
Yeah, obviously they got a bit of a break with just the way the field position ended up so early on for the Bromwich try with all that possession, but then they exploded with the Pappenhausen try, didn't they?
Yeah. And Alan Walker said, like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone, Raiders beat the Storm after racing to an early lead. Not this time, not never. They were never even second best here. The Storms bent the waders over and made them scream. Williams looked like he was fucked over into next week. He was that lost. Rapana was the Fox's bitch. Satan even made him like him after a 60-metre chase back from marker to make a try saver at 30-10.
I think that's harsh on Williams. I thought he was one of the Raiders' better players.
He seemed to stand up for me. Yeah. I think
he got a bit unlucky on that Pappenhausen try, didn't he? That his own, I think it was Jordan Rapana took him out from the chase, and he wouldn't have caught him, but he wanted to try, but Rapana didn't let him.
And I think what was quite good as well is the way that this season, you sort of spoke about it last week, the way that Williams has settled into the organising role, but he still has his running threat and still can chip in, but Whiten sort of moved over. And I saw an interview with Ricky Stewart where he was talking about how he'd spoken to George Williams' dad. I don't know if you saw this one.
No.
And he basically said that he'd had a chat pre-season with George Williams' dad and said, look, I'm thinking of trying to get him to be the organiser and Whiten to be the runner, and do you think he'll cope with that and he'll be happy with that? And he said, yeah, he's got that in his game, go for it. So it sounds like some good coaching from Ricky Stewart has led to that.
Yeah, and a hugely impressive first season, and a hugely impressive 2 seasons for John Bateman as well. I mean, this was all about the Storm and how brilliant they were over the 80 minutes, but whilst we're reflecting, it's worth reflecting on our British players more so on this podcast, because there's 7,000 NRL podcasts that'll talk about the Storm all week and talk about the last game in Queensland, probably for Cameron Smith and things like that. Leave that to the rest.
Yeah. And in the other game, it finished the Panthers 20, the South Sydney Rabbitohs 16, and the scandal-free Burgess played.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he just played but didn't get any stat markers kind of shows that the Rabbitohs were behind the 8 ball in this one. Alan Walker got in touch. He said, now that's what I call rugby league. Big black cats beat bunnies in a bash-up, starting like a shootout, then turned into a real slug fight. Both sides kept fighting till the death. Came down to Dicks for Fingers Burgess as the difference. One from the archives that. Pride for the rest of the rabbits, but no glory. So here we have the Black Panthers, the rinky-dink Black Panthers. Go the mighty Panthers. I mean, yeah, Tom Burgess had a knock-on, but I don't think that was the defining moment in this game.
No, probably not. I mean,
Kurt Capewell had 4 knock-ons, but his team still won.
And a lot of it was just, the Penrith showing the form they showed since the restart.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Yeo was particularly impressive in this game. Kurosawa went off, didn't he, with his injury, got injected up and straight back on, and that was important for the Panthers, whereas the Rabbitohs had a couple of injuries that they couldn't quite come back from. Corey Allen kind of stumbled through the last of the game, got that lucky little kick play that worked out really nicely in the end for him to get the try that made everyone be on the edge of the seat at the end of things. But Adam Reynolds missed 2 goals. You don't see that every week, do you? Because it was 3 tries each. It was goal kicking. Goal kicking was a big factor in this one.
Yes, indeed. Anyway,
women's NRL round 3. So the final round for the quickfire women's tournament. It was the Dragons 10, the Warriors 22, and the Roosters 16, the Broncos 24 in what was the dress rehearsal for the women's grand final. And that will be part of what we talk about next in our preview and predictions. Okay, Tim, we've got round whatever and also round whatever of Super League to talk about. So we've got 9 games to give our predictions for. We'll also talk.
I'll tell you what, it's going more round than the Sugarbabes.
There's also that's a small detail of the NRL Grand Final and the NRL Women's Grand Final that precedes it to talk about once we've got through our Super League tips. So let's start Thursday night, 5:30 p.m. kickoff. This one is on Sky. It's Castleford versus Hull KR. It's out of form side near the bottom versus occasionally in form side near the bottom. Which way is it going for you, Tim?
I think it's KR. I think, as I said, Cass just don't look interested. They just don't look remotely arsed at the moment, and I think that's going to come across, and I think they're going to come a cropper again and sink further down.
I think something has to turn around somehow at Cass. This one could be a bit of a slog to watch. I think there's going to be plenty of errors in the game, but it might lead to some excitement too. And I'm going to say, with their halfbacks back and a game into their return, I'm going to give Castleford a chance here. So I'm going to say Cass by 4. The R-League available match, probably with no commentary for Hull FC fans, but 6:15 p.m. kickoff UK time on Thursday, is Catalans versus Hull FC. Hull FC are in really good form at the moment, but the Catalans are too, and they're chasing the top 4 position here. This will almost certainly end the slim mathematical hopes that Hull FC kind of still have, because I've got Catalans winning by 12. Yeah,
I'm going to say Catalan I'm going to say just by a score here, but I think it's going to be close.
Okay, and then the final game on Thursday, 7:45 p.m. kickoff for the Sky viewers, Huddersfield versus Wakefield. I don't really care. Every credit to every team completing the fixtures at this stage.
I mean, I feel like I've seen this game 400 times, but
I just don't know what's happening. Huddersfield will win it, I think, because Wakefield, when are they going to win again? I feel sorry for Chris Chester, but Huddersfield by 10.
Yeah, I think Huddersfield probably by 12 on this one. I think they showed some good glimpses last week, and again, Caesar's going to get them a few points just on his own. Anyway, they've got a few more form players relatively. So yeah, I think Huddersfield